Hanks. You're not well known for playing unlikable characters in your career. Can you elaborate on how did you prepare for doing this role and making him a bit likable maybe? And because I'm from the Netherlands, I have to ask, did you dive into his Dutch descent and his Dutch accent? And if the answer is yes, what did you find?
I think the Colonel, as I have heard from tons of anecdotal information, he was in fact a delightful guy. He lit up every room that he came into. Priscilla and Jerry themselves have told me that they wish he was alive today. Was he a cheap crook that played fast and loose with the money? Yeah, he was a little cheap crookie when it comes down to that, but they worked that all out to everybody's satisfaction. He was a man who brought joy into everything he did, along with just a little bit of larceny. I'm not interested in playing a bad guy just for the sake of, before I kill you, Mr. Bond, perhaps you'd like a tour of my installation. That's okay. I get it, but I think that's for other stuff. And what Baz tantalized me with right off the bat was, here was a guy who saw an opportunity to manifest a once-in-a-lifetime talent into a cultural force. He saw that. He knew that about Elvis. The first time he saw Elvis's effect on an audience. There was a moment that is very much taken from fact of the Colonel seeing some guy on stage doing something he'd never heard before, wiggling like crazy, without a doubt, a powerful force, but he wasn't paying attention to what the man was doing on stage. He was paying attention to the effect of the audience that was watching him. He realized that that guy was forbidden fruit. And you can make an awful lot of money on forbidden fruit, but you can also turn that into something that is much more of a cultural exchange. I give Colonel credit for doing that very thing. And I also give him the reality of being the amount of ways that Colonel Tom Parker cheated people out of nickels and dimes and dollars is extraordinary. And by the way, I've incorporated some of those in my own life now. So you learn a little something from every role, And as far as no one knew that of the Colonel's background. And there are some extraordinary tabloidy, melodramatic stories about why he left Holland and how he did. I like to think that, he was running away from an aspect of his past. He wanted to get out of his small town. He wanted to work up in the big time. And who among us wouldn't jump at an opportunity to do that very thing? I don't know if we have to change our name particularly, but as soon as someone said, I'm going to make you an honorary colonel, Tom Parker, well, he said, well, guess what I am now? Colonel Tom Parker. And that's a mercurial and brilliant man who at the same time made sure he lined his own pockets. I heard this great quote about Colonel Tom Parker in 1956. Someone said, so how is it, why is it that you latched on to that? Now, what magic are you working with Mr. Elvis the Pelvis Presley? He said, well, I tell you, last year my boy had $1 million worth of talent. This year my boy has $1 million. And I'm going to say about 10% of that was in Mr. Colonel Tom Parker's pocket. So that all worked out. God bless America, and who wouldn't jump ship in order to have an opportunity to do that? Thank you.
Rodrigo, I think you have a question.
How it was filming such a quintessential Australian story, American story in Australia. But I have another little question because I live in France, and the French call you Mr. Honks. You could be Mr. Hanks, but how do you feel that they expect how they pronunciate your name? I think it's quite cool.
Oh, my kids call me Tam Honks anyway, so that's all right. I'll speak for everybody. We could not have had a better quarters than we had in Queensland there on the Broad Beach. I'm not quite sure why bin chickens are as prevalent as they are, those prehistoric-looking birds that are absolutely everywhere. The crew was an extraordinary collection of great, hardworking people. The climate was fantastic. Every morning I got up to a view there on the 43rd floor of our towering condominium that could see all the way into New South Wales. That's how high it was. But I will say that one thing that was frustrating, because we did shoot this under the COVID protocols, so there were a lot of people who did not see each other every day. As a matter of fact, the joy of a common hair and makeup trailer was lost. We were all separated, so I never got to see Austin until he walked onto the set, fully done up in his alter ego as Captain Marvel Jr. So it was not the easiest circumstances in order to make a movie, but I have to say it's a fabulous studio. The film industry down there is as great as exists anywhere in the world, and I would return on a moment's notice to the same place, just not quite without the same amount of COVID attention that we all had when we were down there. But it's a great place to make a movie.
We have a question over there.
And to answer your question about the most challenging part about it, it's such a tricky thing, because when I first started, I had I put these unrealistic expectations on myself that somehow, if I worked hard enough, I could make my face identical to Elvis's face. And that my eyes would look exactly like Elvis's eyes, and you wouldn't be able to tell the difference. And I realized that at a certain point, that becomes like going to the wax museum. And what is really important is that his soul comes out. And so just like I was saying about stripping everything away, it was finding the balance between getting as specific as I possibly could, and that meant just endless research. I would watch one clip of, just to take an example, Milton Berle Hound Dog. I'd watch 1 second of this clip over and over and over, and look at what his eyes were doing, look at the angle of his head, look at what his hand was doing, and try to find it exactly, and practice that until it was in my marrow. And then the tricky thing is being able to be there on the day and have it feel like it's happening for the first time, and that it's spontaneous and it's actually alive. And the reason why he moved in that way and why he spoke in that way, and that meant finding his inner being. But then it's like spinning plates, because you want to go back to the specifics, and so it was this constant back and forth. And I know, even watching, somebody asked me yesterday, did you watch playback when we were filming? And I said there were certain moments, like watching Hound Dog, where we did one take, and then I went back and I watched it, and I thought,
What's wrong?
oh, what's wrong?
Yeah.
I'm doing too much. And so then we strip it back, and try to get to the point where it's just, you have to get through the nerves of it and then just feel the life. So like you say, Baz read Priscilla's text message to me when we were driving to dinner, just the two of us in the car, and it just brought tears to my eyes, because ultimately, there's never been a person who I've never met that I've loved more than Elvis. I've lived with him now for it's 3 years. So the feeling of doing him justice to his legacy, and really bring life to this extraordinary man, and to make Lisa Marie and Priscilla and Riley and the entire family proud, that I could not be more overjoyed, and I just feel over the moon about that.